Welcome back to Meaningful Whispers. Tonight you drift onto the soft, silvered surface of a moonlit lake. The air is cool and still, carrying the faint scent of damp earth and wild reeds. Somewhere in the distance, water laps gently against wooden poles, a quiet rhythm that feels older than memory. You hover between waking and dreaming, gazing at a stretch of calm water that doesn't seem empty at all. It feels alive, as if the lake itself is breathing. And yes, your ego might not make it through unscathed, because tonight you're going to dissolve into a world where the boundary between land and water was rewritten by human hands. So before we dive in, tap that like button and subscribe to Cyphoria, only if these midnight mind voyages truly speak to you. And as always, tell me in the comments where you're listening from and what time it is there. Let's see how far across the map of consciousness we stretch tonight. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You close your eyes for a moment and feel the gentle sway of an unseen current. When you open them, the lake is vast and endless before you, and it's not quiet anymore. You hear the whisper of voices, the soft shuffle of bare feet on narrow walkways, the rustle of reeds as hands gather them in careful bundles. This is Lake Texcoco, long before its waters were tamed or drained. Back when the Aztecs, though they called themselves the Mexica, looked out at this great expanse and wondered how to make a home where there was no solid ground. Imagine their arrival, a wandering people, guided by omens, seeking a promised land. Historians tell us they saw an eagle perched on a cactus, clutching a serpent, and took it as a divine sign. But what they found wasn't a lush valley waiting for them. It was a swampy basin, shimmering like a mirage, hostile and beautiful. You pause and feel your breath. Inhale deeply. Notice the coolness in your nose. Exhale slowly. Let the tension melt from your shoulders. How do you live in a place where land is fleeting, soft, drowning? Most would leave, but they stayed. They saw possibility in the impossible. Like Jung once wrote, "In all chaos, there is a cosmos." So they built something that should not have worked, a network of floating gardens called Chinampas, delicate yet resilient, born from mud, reeds, and human persistence. You picture the first ones, small rafts made from bundled reeds, layered with lake sediment and organic matter. Over time, roots intertwined with the lake bed below, anchoring these islands in place. They weren't really floating anymore. They were suspended between water and earth, half dream, half reality. And in that in-between, life flourished. Corn, beans, squash, staples of Mesoamerican life, sprouted from these gardens, green against the silver water. Pause. Notice the weight of your eyelids. Let them grow heavy as you imagine stepping onto one of these first fragile Chinampas. The soil is soft beneath your feet, damp and rich with nutrients. Around you, water reflects the moon, but also your own silhouette, like a mirror reminding you of your own impermanence. You feel small, yet connected. There's an odd calm in this place, isn't there? It's not just about survival, it's about balance. The Aztecs didn't just conquer their environment, they adapted to it, learned from it. But historians still argue whether these gardens were purely practical or if they also held deeper ritual meaning. Were they just farms or floating temples of sorts, honoring the lake spirit? You can't help but think of another story, a strange anecdote from centuries later. An Italian inventor once tried to build a floating city in Venice, a massive raft designed to hold entire buildings. It failed. Of course, humans often try to defy water, but the Aztecs didn't fight the lake. They wove their lives into it like threads into a tapestry. The thought lingers. Maybe stability was never the goal. Maybe it was harmony. He who has a why to live can bear almost any how, Nietzsche whispers across time. The Mexica had their why: survival, identity, the will to transform a swamp into a sacred home. Now your breath slows, and the edges of your awareness blur. You hear the soft drip of water somewhere near your ear. You turn your head and see more Chinampas stretching across the lake like a patchwork quilt of green. Narrow canals separate them, and small canoes glide silently between, leaving barely a ripple. There are no streets here, only waterways. It's quiet enough that you can hear the paddle dipping in and out of the water, a rhythm as soft as a heartbeat. There's a moment of stillness, then a flash of color, flowers planted along the edges of the gardens, not for food, but for beauty. Even here in this struggle to live, there was space for beauty. You can almost smell the blossoms, faint and sweet, mingling with the earthy scent of wet soil. You stand in the quiet, letting this place seep into your senses. The moon above reflects twice, once in the lake, once in your mind. It's hard to tell which is real anymore. And as you drift deeper into this feeling, you begin to see the faint glow of torches on the horizon. There's something else out there, beyond the Chinampas, something larger, shimmering like a city born from the lake itself. And you're already moving toward it. You glide forward, leaving the quiet Chinampas behind, and the water grows wider, the sky opening like an endless dome. Canoes pass you, some carrying bundles of maize, others flowers, others just silent passengers whose eyes seem half-lidded in thought. You realize you're approaching a place where gardens end and something else begins. The air changes here. It feels charged, alive with purpose. Before you lies a maze of narrow waterways, perfectly ordered yet fluid, connecting floating plots like veins of a great, breathing organism. You've entered the deeper heart of the Chinampa system, where the Aztec ingenuity reveals itself fully. You pause and let your breath mirror the still rhythm of this place. Inhale softly, feel the coolness settle inside your chest. Exhale, imagine your breath rippling across the water surface, merging with the lake. Chinampas were more than gardens. They were the quiet engines of a civilization. Each floating plot measured about 30 by 2.5 meters, a narrow ribbon of fertile soil framed by canals. Farmers tended them with a precision that feels almost meditative. Every morning they collected nutrient-rich mud from the lake bed, layering it atop their gardens. The roots of willows planted along the edges, intertwined with the structure, binding soil and water in a natural embrace. Mainstream history tells you this was one of the most productive agricultural systems in the world. A single acre of Chinampa could yield 7 times more food than dry land farming. But here, standing on the edge of a narrow canal, you sense it wasn't just about efficiency, it was about rhythm, the quiet rhythm of life synced with the lake's pulse. You crouch down and touch the water. It's cool, almost silky. A dragonfly hovers near the reeds, and then, faintly, you hear laughter, soft, echoing through the canals. You look up and see 2 children on a canoe, their tiny hands trailing in the water, leaving ripples that distort the moonlight. There's a story you recall, almost like a dream fragment. An old Spanish chronicler once wrote of these gardens and called them floating meadows, marveling at how they appeared to drift even when anchored. He couldn't quite believe they were man-made. And you smile to yourself. Sometimes even the conquerors couldn't deny the poetry of what they saw. But scholars still debate the origin. Did the Aztecs invent Chinampas entirely? Or did they inherit the concept from earlier cultures like the Xochimilca, who lived around the lake centuries before? The truth, like the reflection of the moon on the water, shifts depending on your angle. You breathe in, feeling your rib cage expand, and as you exhale, a thought drifts across your mind. Nature and culture were never separate here. They were braided together. The lake fed the gardens fed the people honored the lake. It was a circle, a soft continuity that modern cities rarely know. And then you hear something, a low hum. It's the sound of farmers singing as they work. Their voices are steady, slow, like the paddling of their canoes. The song tells stories of the maize deity, of the lake's gifts, of cycles that never end. You don't understand the words, but you feel them in your chest, a vibration that lulls you deeper into this quiet trance. A small canoe glides past you. On it, a woman balances clay pots of herbs and flowers. She smiles faintly but doesn't speak. You notice the way her paddle moves, slow, deliberate, never splashing. It's like she knows any sudden motion would disturb the water's calm spirit. Your mind drifts again to the strangeness of it all. In so many histories, water is seen as an obstacle, something to drain, to wall off, to control. But here it was embraced. Even today, psychologists note how humans find calm in the presence of water. There's a therapy called Blue Mind that explores how proximity to lakes or oceans quiets the nervous system. Maybe the Aztecs, without scientific studies, simply knew. Look deeply into nature and you will understand everything better, whispers Einstein across time. You chuckle softly. He wasn't talking about Chinampas, but somehow he was. You take a slow breath again. The scent of wet earth mixes with the faint sweetness of flowers. In the distance, you see rows of amaranth and chilies growing beside corn. You realize every Chinampa was a tiny universe, diverse, balanced, sustainable. A single one could support a family. Multiply that by thousands, and you get a civilization fed not by conquest, but by patience. Yet even in this serenity, you notice subtle signs of strain. The lake, though vast, is finite. Some canals are narrower than others, some plots overworked. You wonder if the people knew this abundance was also fragile. A memory surfaces, unbidden, the empty chair technique from Gestalt therapy. You imagine sitting on a small wooden stool, facing an empty canoe. If you placed the lake itself in that canoe, what would it say to you? Would it thank you for walking gently, or would it sigh knowing what history will bring? You let the thought dissolve like a ripple. As the song of the farmers fades, you sense movement on the horizon. Lanterns flicker in the distance, their glow reflecting on the canals. It feels like the Chinampas are leading you towards something greater, something that glows with quiet power. You step onto a narrow wooden walkway. Beneath you, the water moves silently. Ahead, faint but growing clearer, you see the outline of towering structures, temples, houses. They seem to rise directly from the lake, as if water and stone have fused into one. You realize the gardens were only the beginning. The true marvel waits beyond this soft green quilt. A city that is neither on land nor sea, but somehow both. A city born from reflection. And with a deep, slow inhale, you move toward it. You drift closer now, the lanterns multiplying like fireflies across the darkened water. The air carries a subtle perfume, copal incense, earthy and sweet, mingling with the faint aroma of maize roasting somewhere far off. The sky above is a deep indigo, scattered with stars that seem almost close enough to touch. You pause for a moment, letting the quiet hum of the lake resonate in your chest. Inhale softly, hold it for a heartbeat, and exhale as the horizon begins to reveal its secret. Before you rises Tenochtitlan. It doesn't feel like a city, it feels like an illusion, something too precise, too fluid, too harmonious to be real. Towers and temples stand reflected perfectly in the calm surface of the lake, so perfectly that the line between sky and water dissolves. Stone pyramids stretch upward, their stairways lit by flickering torches. Bridges arch gently over the canals, connecting districts like veins connecting organs in a living body. Canoes glide silently beneath these bridges, moving people, goods, and whispers. You step off the wooden walkway and onto a broad causeway. It's wide enough for hundreds to walk across side by side, yet it feels delicate, almost like the stroke of a brush over still water. This is one of the three great causeways linking the island city to the mainland, and you realize as your foot touches the smooth stone that you are walking on a miracle of balance. Land built on water, water tamed without ever being truly conquered. Mainstream history often compares Tenochtitlan to Venice. Both cities rose from lakes, both threaded with canals. But here the scale is staggering. This was a metropolis of perhaps 200,000 souls, at a time when most European capitals were shadows of their future selves. The Spanish, when they first saw it, were stunned. Bernal Diaz del Castillo wrote that it was like an enchanted vision, a city shimmering on a lake, larger and more organized than anything they'd imagined in the so-called New World. You walk slowly along the causeway, feeling the faint vibration of distant drums. The rhythm is hypnotic, echoing the beat of your own heart. At the end of the causeway, a plaza unfolds, wide open, alive. You see markets lit by torchlight, vendors arranging piles of cacao beans, vibrant textiles, obsidian blades that gleam like captured shadows. People move with quiet purpose, their steps measured, their gazes calm yet alert. You pause to watch a man offer a stranger a cup of xocolotl, the sacred chocolate drink, frothy and dark. The stranger sips it slowly, his expression unreadable. There's a hush here, even amid the bustle, as if the city breathes with one shared rhythm. And yet, even here in this serene beauty, you sense layers. Beneath the harmony, there's tension, like the silent pull between the moon and the tide. Historians still argue whether Tenochtitlan's grandeur masked a growing fragility. Was it sustainable, or was it always destined to collapse under its own brilliance? A soft voice drifts into your thoughts. All things break when they become too rigid, whispers a fragment of Jung's wisdom. You glance at the temple towering above the plaza, the Templo Mayor, the axis of their universe. Its twin shrines sit side by side, dedicated to two gods whose balance kept the cosmos turning. You breathe in, and for a moment the incense from the temple reaches you, sharp and sweet. You feel it in your lungs, grounding you. Exhale slowly, imagining your breath mingling with the smoke rising from those ancient steps. There's an anecdote you remember, a strange and quiet one. It is said that some nights the priest would set tiny paper boats afloat on the lake, each carrying a single candle. They believed the flickering lights guided lost spirits back to the water's embrace. Tonight, you see them yourself. Dozens of little flames drifting silently along the canal's edge. They seem to watch you, or maybe they're leading you somewhere. You move deeper into the city, crossing a narrow canal on a wooden bridge. Below you, the water mirrors your silhouette. Around you, the streets are clean, ordered, lined with whitewashed houses that gleam faintly in the starlight. You notice something that feels strangely modern. This is an organized city, carefully planned, with aqueducts bringing fresh water from the mountains. Even the waste is managed, turned back into the soil that fed the Chinampas. And yet it is not the technology that captivates you, it's the feeling. This is a city where every stone, every plant, every drop of water seems to belong, as though it grew here naturally. There is no harsh divide between human and nature. You realize how rare that is. How so many cities, even today, stand like wounds on the earth. You pause by another canal and close your eyes. The sound of paddles dipping into the water blends with the low murmur of voices. You feel your shoulders loosen, the tension in your neck dissolving. Breathe, slow, deeper now. When you open your eyes, you notice a boy sitting on the edge of the canal, dangling his feet above the water. He holds a small clay flute, and he plays a soft tune, fragile, almost breaking with each note. The melody catches in your chest. It feels like a memory you can't place, something from a dream long forgotten. And here, in this quiet moment, you realize why the city feels like a living being. It isn't just built on the lake. It is the lake, reshaped, reimagined. The water holds the city, and the city reflects the water. But shadows always linger behind beauty. Somewhere in the distance, past the gardens, past the causeways, there are whispers of strangers arriving. Strangers who see this harmony not as a wonder, but as a prize. You don't see them yet, but you feel the faint tremor of what will come. The drums change rhythm now, slower, deeper. You look toward the temple again, its steps glowing in the torchlight. You can't help but think of the duality of it all. Creation and destruction, growth and sacrifice, always entwined. You take one last slow inhale, hold it gently, then release it like a leaf drifting onto the lake's surface. Ahead of you, beyond the temple, beyond the plaza, lies the palace of the Tlatoani, the ruler whose word shapes the city's fate. You know you're being drawn there, not just to see him, but to glimpse the mind behind this impossible city. So you move forward, leaving the quiet music of the boy's flute behind, stepping into the deeper heart of Tenochtitlan. You drift along a wide canal toward the heart of the city, its waters black and glassy, reflecting the trembling torches of passing canoes. The air is cooler here, touched by a faint breeze that carries the scent of blooming marigolds. You hear the soft splash of paddles, the low murmur of voices in Nahuatl, and somewhere faintly, the haunting thrum of a conch shell echoing like a distant whale song. You lean slightly over the edge of the canoe and feel the whisper of the lake against your fingertips. Cool, smooth, fleeting. Ahead rises the palace of Moctezuma II. It is not one building, but a labyrinth of courtyards, gardens, and halls. More like a living organism than a structure. As you step onto its polished stone floor, your eyes catch the shimmer of water flowing through channels carved right into the architecture. Pools lined with jade and obsidian glint faintly, and fountains release quiet streams that sound like soft rainfall. You pause, taking in the stillness. Inhale through your nose. Feel the coolness filling your lungs. And exhale, letting your shoulders fall. There is a deep serenity here, but it feels fragile, like the calm before a storm. Inside, the palace is a world of contradictions. One courtyard is alive with birds, hundreds of exotic species from distant corners of the empire, their feathers flashing blue, red, and gold. Another room is filled with fierce animals in cages, jaguars pacing silently, serpents coiled like living shadows. The Aztecs believed that by keeping the empire's creatures close, they maintained balance between the known and the wild. Historians still debate what kind of man Moctezuma truly was. Was he a brilliant strategist holding an empire together, or a superstitious ruler paralyzed by omens and prophecy? No one agrees. He ruled with absolute power, yet lived under constant weight, his every decision rippling across the vast lake of his people's lives. You're led into a vast hall where Moctezuma himself sits. He wears cotton robes so finely woven, they seem softer than mist. Gold jewelry gleams faintly against his dark skin, yet it doesn't feel gaudy, more like the sunlight has chosen to cling to him. His face is still, unreadable, a mask carved from patience. He looks at you, not with curiosity, but with a quiet knowing, as though he has already seen this moment in a dream. You remember Nietzsche's warning, "He who gazes into the abyss gazes also into you." And for the briefest flicker, you feel as if the city itself is looking through his eyes. A servant places a cup before you, filled with sacalotl, bitter and spiced with chili. You sip it carefully, the taste dark and electric on your tongue. The drink doesn't comfort you. It wakes you, sharpens you, makes the room feel more vivid, almost too vivid. In the silence, a memory floats back, an unusual anecdote whispered among the old chroniclers. It is said that Moctezuma had a secret chamber filled with mirrors of obsidian. He would sit for hours staring into them, believing they revealed fragments of the future. And what he saw, they say, were men unlike any he'd known, arriving from the east with lightning weapons and strange beasts. Some believed it was a vision of gods returning. Others thought it was only the mind unraveling under the weight of empire. You glance to the edge of the hall, where a priest burns copal incense. The smoke rises in delicate spirals, wrapping the room in a haze. You inhale, the resinous sweetness filling your senses, grounding you for just a moment. And in that haze, you catch a glimpse, not of the present, but of something sliding toward it. You feel it before you see it, a subtle tremor in the city's rhythm. Somewhere beyond the horizon, sails are catching wind, carrying strangers who have never seen water gardens or temples on a lake. You don't hear their voices yet, but the echo of their arrival is already vibrating in the quiet spaces. Moctezuma speaks finally, his voice low, deliberate. You don't understand the words, but the cadence feels like a prayer and a question woven together. You realize he is not asking you for answers. He is speaking to the unseen forces shaping his world. Outside the palace, you wander into the emperor's gardens. They are not like any gardens you know. They float, they breathe. Flowers bloom in colors you cannot name. Tiny canals weave through the greenery, reflecting moonlight so delicately it looks as if the earth itself is glowing. A white heron stands at the edge of the water, perfectly still, like a fragment of silence made real. And yet even here you feel the city's pulse shifting. The drums in the distance beat a slower rhythm, more somber. The boy with the flute is gone now. The little candle-lit boats you saw earlier, a few of them have gone dark, swallowed by the night. Breathe in slowly through your nose. Hold it for 3 beats, and exhale as gently as the lake exhales mist at dawn. You feel your body relax again, but your mind remains alert, circling a single thought you can't quite escape. Nothing this beautiful survives unchanged. A faint laugh drifts from somewhere nearby. You turn and see 2 young gardeners standing among the flowers, sharing a quiet joke as they weave garlands for the coming festival. Their laughter is soft, brief, fading quickly into the air. For a moment, you envy their unshaken ease. You take one last look at the palace, its walls shimmering in the torchlight. Inside, a ruler waits, tethered to visions of fate. Outside, a city breathes on the water, unaware of how thin the line between miracle and fragility truly is. From here, your path moves outward again, beyond the palace, beyond the markets, toward the open waters of Lake Texcoco itself. Because to understand the city fully, you must see it from where it began, from the floating gardens themselves, the Chinampas that fed and anchored an empire. So you step back into your canoe. The water accepts you again with a soft, hollow sound. And as you push away from the stone steps, you feel the city slowly receding behind you, like a dream fading just before you wake. You glide out onto the open waters of Lake Texcoco, leaving the torch-lit edges of the city behind. The silence here feels deeper, more ancient, like the lake itself remembers things older than human voices. The moon hangs above, silver and patient, its reflection broken into ripples by the slow movement of your canoe. You trail your fingers in the water and feel its coolness slide past, carrying tiny bits of floating vegetation, fragments of what will become life. Ahead you see them, the Chinampas, floating gardens that are not truly floating, but anchored to the lake bed with reeds, mud, and stakes of willow trees. By daylight, they are vibrant patches of green, but by night they look like shadowed islands drifting in a mirror of stars. You approach one slowly, the faint smell of damp earth mingling with the sweetness of night-blooming flowers. This was the secret of Tenochtitlan's abundance. These gardens created more fertile land than the natural earth itself. They were mosaics of ingenuity, weaving together nature and human will. On each Chinampa, farmers grew maize, beans, squash, chilies, and flowers in harmonious rows. Canals separated the plots, turning the lake into a living grid. You step lightly onto one of these islands, the ground springy beneath your feet, damp but steady. You kneel and touch the soil. It is rich, black, soft with the nutrients of the lake. A farmer nearby pauses in his work, glancing up at you with a nod. He holds a simple tool, its wooden handle smooth from generations of hands. He does not speak. He doesn't need to. His eyes say, "This is how we keep the city alive." Historians still debate how many Chinampas truly existed. Some say thousands stretch like a tapestry across the lake. Others insist the number has been exaggerated by romantic imaginations. The truth is somewhere in between, a testament to both memory and myth. As you walk farther along, you hear a sound that doesn't belong to the night. It's a soft flute melody, played by someone tending to the crops even at this hour. The tune drifts like mist over the water, slow and contemplative. You pause to listen, inhale gently through your nose, feeling the fresh scent of wet reeds and soil. Exhale, letting your body sink into the stillness of this midnight garden. There's an odd little story you recall, an anecdote whispered in the margins of Aztec lore. It's said that during festivals, some Chinampas were turned into floating stages, covered with flowers and musicians, and sent drifting toward the heart of the city. They would light tiny clay lanterns and the gardens would glow softly as they moved across the lake. Like fragments of the Milky Way fallen to earth. Imagine it, the city reflecting the stars, and the stars reflecting the city, blurring the boundary between heaven and water. Nietzsche once wrote, "All great things must first wear terrifying masks." You think of that as you glance around these delicate gardens, knowing they carry the burden of empire. They look peaceful now, but they were never merely peaceful. They were the foundation of power, supplying food for thousands, supporting rituals, sustaining the lives of warriors and priests alike. As you drift between the Chinampas, you notice the faint outlines of sleeping birds nestled among reeds. A heron lifts its head briefly, then settles again. The moonlight touches the leaves with a pale glow, revealing the rhythm of nature and the quiet labor that held this world together. And then you feel it again, that subtle tremor beneath the surface of history. You can almost hear distant footsteps on the eastern shore, wooden ships slicing through unfamiliar waters, voices speaking in a tongue no one here understands. You can't see them yet, but the future is already moving toward this lake, like a shadow stretching over still water. A farmer looks up from his work and wipes his brow with the back of his hand. He hums a soft tune, something his ancestors might have sung. For him, there is no omen, no dread, just the rhythm of planting and harvesting. For him, the lake is eternal. You crouch by the water's edge and let your hand trail through it once more. The surface ripples, distorting the moon's reflection. You watch it shiver and reform, like time itself trying to hold its shape. Take a slow breath now. Inhale deeply. Hold it for 4 beats. Exhale softly, as though releasing the weight of unseen stories. Your body feels lighter, yet your mind holds a quiet heaviness. You're beginning to understand that even the most ingenious creations, the Chinampas, the canals, the shimmering city, are temporary ripples in a larger current. In the distance, you see the faint glow of Tenochtitlan's temples. From here, they look fragile, like paper lanterns floating on a vast lake. And somewhere beyond the horizon, a tide is rising that no garden, no lake, no empire can hold back. You step back into your canoe. The farmer gives you a small smile before turning back to his work. As your boat drifts away, you hear the soft rustle of leaves, the quiet murmur of water, and the lingering echo of that flute, thin and haunting, like a voice calling through time. The city waits for you once more, but it will not be the same when you return. Soon you will feel the first whispers of change, the first cracks in the mirror-smooth surface of the lake. Soon, you will witness what happens when an empire meets the impossible. For now, though, you drift onward through the darkness, the Chinampas fading behind you like a dream you can't quite hold on to. You glide back toward the city, but it is no longer the same shimmering jewel you saw before. There's a heaviness in the air now, a tension you can almost taste. As your canoe reaches the edge of the Chinampas, you hear faint echoes, foreign voices drifting across the lake. They are sharp and clipped, utterly unlike the fluid tones of Nahuatl. You pause, holding your breath, as though stopping might change what is coming. But the current of time doesn't pause, and neither can you. On the horizon, you see something unnatural, great wooden beasts with wings of white cloth. They cut through the water with alien confidence, their prows lined with men in strange metal skins. The Spaniards have arrived. Hernan Cortés and his men step onto the shores of this waterbound empire. And the ripples spread faster than anyone can contain. The city meets them first with curiosity. The Aztec rulers believe they are guests, or perhaps emissaries of distant gods. Gifts are exchanged: gold, feathers, food, and in return come weapons, disease, and invisible seeds of betrayal. Historians still argue whether Montezuma truly believed Cortés was a god, or if that story was later written to explain his cautious diplomacy. Either way, the result is the same: hesitation that will cost an empire its life. You walk through the streets of Tenochtitlan again, but they feel altered. Foreign boots click against the smooth causeways, and the bright murals now have watchful eyes that don't belong here. The air smells different too: gunpowder, sweat, and the faint metallic tang of fear. There's a strange anecdote that flickers in your mind. When the Spaniards first entered the city, they marveled at the floating gardens. They thought the Chinampas were islands that could drift freely, like boats of soil. They couldn't comprehend that they were rooted in patience, balance, and centuries of knowledge. And in their wonder, they also saw opportunity. They imagined how easily they could claim it all. A single cough echoes through the marketplace. It seems harmless, almost unnoticeable. But you know what it means. Smallpox has arrived. It moves silently, faster than any army. Within weeks, whole families vanish, leaving behind empty homes, silent canals, and wilted gardens. The lake reflects not festivals, but grief, its waters carrying away the hushed prayers of survivors. You feel a knot tighten in your chest. Breathe in gently now. Hold it for a moment, acknowledging the weight of what you're feeling. Then exhale slowly, letting some of it dissolve into the stillness of your own breath. Nietzsche whispers again in your mind, "What is falling should also be pushed." But here you see no push, only a slow unraveling. The Spaniards seize the temples, dismantle the idols, melt down the gold that once shimmered in the sun. The great causeways, the heart of the city, are torn apart to make room for European designs. The lake itself is drained, its mirror shattered, leaving the Chinampas to wither into memory. Yet even in this unraveling, there is resilience. You remember the flute on the Chinampas, the farmer who kept working even when the shadows of the future crept close. After the fall, fragments of this knowledge survive. Some Chinampas endure, feeding new generations. The canals echo faintly in what is now Mexico City, hidden beneath concrete, but still whispering their old secrets. You close your eyes and imagine what the city must have felt like in its final days of splendor. Boats gliding through starlit canals, markets brimming with colors, voices weaving together in song. And then you imagine the silence that followed, the lake slowly filling with foreign debris. It feels like standing at the edge of a dream, watching it dissolve before you can save it. There's one last breath you take here on the lake. Inhale the damp scent of water lilies, of earth, of what remains. Hold it gently. Exhale with the understanding that even the greatest cities are like reflections on water. Beautiful, intricate, but never permanent. The canoe rocks slightly beneath you. You glance back one last time at the fading silhouette of Tenochtitlan. It seems to hover between worlds, half memory, half myth. In your mind, you hear the words of Jung. In all chaos, there is a cosmos. Perhaps even in destruction, something quiet survives. As your canoe drifts into darkness, the city disappears behind you. In its place, you see only the faint shimmer of stars on the water, endless and indifferent. But you carry the memory forward, the ingenuity of the Chinampas, the resilience of a people who built cities on water, the lesson that all empires, no matter how brilliant, are temporary ripples. You breathe one last time with the lake, slowly, gently, like letting go of a story you were holding too tightly. And now, as you settle deeper into your bed, let this journey slowly dissolve into the quiet of your own mind. You've drifted through a city of water, felt the soft earth of floating gardens beneath your feet, and watched history rise and fall like the tide. There's a strange comfort in knowing that even the most extraordinary human creations are fleeting, like dreams we borrow for a little while before they slip back into the currents of time. Take a deep breath. Feel the weight of your body sinking into the mattress, the softness of the pillow cradling your head. Let your shoulders drop, releasing the last bits of tension you've been holding. The hum of your own breathing becomes the lake now, steady, calm, eternal. Remember the flute you heard on the Chinampas, its soft, haunting melody. Let it play quietly in the back of your thoughts, fading into silence. The moonlight that once danced across the canals is now just the faint glow behind your eyelids. The city of Tenochtitlan becomes a distant shimmer, slowly folding into the darkness. You are safe here, beyond time, beyond the rise and fall of empires. You are simply floating. Like one of those gardens, gently tethered but free to drift wherever your dreams take you. Breathe in once more, slow, deep, unhurried. And as you exhale, imagine yourself gliding farther into the night, carried by calm waters that lead to rest, to quiet, to peace. Sweet dreams, traveler.